Novice Prepper here. This is a new video series I'm going to call Let's Talk, where I bring up a topic or an item and go over it, and we discuss it down in the comments. This will be an audio-only format designed for those on the go. There will be no visuals. What is up? Novice Prepper here, and on today's episode of Let's Talk, we're going to be talking about approaching friends, family, and coworkers about emergency preparedness. These past few years have shown us how quickly supplies can and will disappear from store shelves and online retailers. What will you do if there are no more shipments of food coming? Many other channels have spoken in depth on the just-in-time delivery system, so I'm not going to say too much more on it other than it's designed to restock shelves just as our current supplies are about to run out. It's a very delicate process that can cause massive shortages nationwide, as we've seen if there are any delays. Many people still think of preppers as the crazy old guy with a doomsday bunker and 1,000 guns versus Steve down the street with enough supplies to keep his family safe in the case of emergency. When speaking to those around you about becoming prepared, don't go into detail about your supplies, as that could lead them to think they can just come to you in the event of an emergency. Ask them questions that will make them think. Such as, if you couldn't go to the store for a month, do you have everything you need to survive? How long can you live on the food you have at home? And are you able to spare $50 a pay period towards extra supplies? When talking with someone about starting off, impress on them they can and should start small. They don't need to immediately focus on a 1-year supply. Preps aren't only to be used in a global or national event. If you or your partner have a sudden job loss, then they can be used alongside your current inventory. Any sort of reasonable disaster or emergency could qualify using your supplies. You can also equate it to a car kit, such as flares, jumper cables, tire iron, and air compressor. There's no specific plan to have troubles, but if it's there, then you have the supplies to deal with it. For some people, you can spend hours or even days giving them reasons to start preparing, and they'll still shrug it off and say the government will take care of them in a disaster. While I talk about FEMA and them providing assistance in a moment, their handout should not be the end goal. If you wish to press them further about their plan of relying on the government, then you can list a few examples where the government did not do as promised and how more harm than good was done, such as Hurricane Katrina, or in Flint, Michigan. Another possible approach is to prep for natural disasters common in your area. They could be left without power or assistance for days, if not weeks in some circumstances. How will government assistance reach them if the roads are blocked? FEMA, which stands for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, has released a basic emergency supply list. This list should cover most circumstances encountered in the first 72 hours before they can begin deploying assistance. This is the bare bones minimum you'll need for that time. Many will not recommend relying on outside agencies for your welfare, and overall, I do agree with that sentiment. Independence is the cornerstone of this community. Though something is better than nothing. To start off, that can be the plan or goal for the short term for you or others. Some of the things listed on the FEMA Basic Emergency Supply List are 1 gallon of water per person per day, 3 days minimum. Non-perishable foods, 3 days worth per person. Battery-powered or hand-crank radio. NOAA weather radio. Flashlight and extra batteries. Can opener and local maps. First aid kit. Whistle to signal for help. Dust mask to filter air. Plastic sheeting and duct tape to shelter in place. Moist towelettes, garbage bags, and plastic ties for sanitation. Wrenches or pliers to turn off utilities. Additional items to consider. Prescription medication and glasses. Infant formula and diapers. Pet food and water. Copies of documents such as insurance, IDs, bank info in a waterproof container, cash, change, and traveler's checks, emergency reference material, first aid book, or info from www.ready.gov, sleeping bag or warm blanket for each person, extra if in a cold climate, complete change of clothes, long sleeve, pants, and sturdy shoes, extra layers for colder areas. Household chlorine bleach and medicine dropper. 9 parts water to 1 part bleach can be used as a disinfectant. 16 drops standard bleach to treat 1 gallon of water. Do not use scented, color safe, or any type of bleach with added cleaners. Fire extinguisher. Matches in a waterproof container. Feminine hygiene supplies or personal hygiene supplies. Mess kit, paper cups, plates, plastic utensils, and paper towels. Paper and pencils/pens. Books, games, puzzles, activities for the mind. You can mention the toilet paper shortage and how a few people going overboard created a domino effect that led to people clearing shelves, leaving nothing for others. If or when an event happens, there will not be the time to go get all the supplies they will need, and it could become fatal as other people will value their lives less than their own. Let them know you aren't asking them to go out ASAP and buy thousands in food and supplies, but while they're still available, to pick up a couple of extra non-perishables every time they go to the store. I don't have a budget for that. This is a phrase you'll more than likely hear. Most people have their current standard of living and aren't willing to cut back to help better prepare for a disaster. They may claim they only have the necessities or basics. Ask them if they have or do any of the following. Have 1 or more streaming services. Get fast food at least once a week. Often pay $5+ for a cup of coffee. Skip generic brands for name brand everything. Going generic can help save a lot of money when grocery shopping. On some brands, the generic is half or a third the cost of the name brand for the same price. You can get 2 or 3 times the amount and put the extra away to start your prepping pantry. Cutting back on small, frivolous expenses will add up quickly. I'm not advocating that you must live like a monk to be able to prep. You or the person you're trying to get started needs to be honest with yourself or themselves about where your money is going and what expenses are really necessary. Their bare minimum to start with should be a 72-hour kit. This will provide the basics and potentially lay the groundwork for further expansion. If there has been any recent local events, such as floods, ice storms, or droughts, you can bring them up as a possibility again and ask what they would need to avoid the same problems they had last time. Have they ever experienced famine? Well, I myself haven't had to go through that. Growing up, I was told many stories of hardships and shortages. One particular story that stuck with me was one family member who was born in 1944 with 5 siblings, ate nothing but onion soup for 3 months in the winter. The farmer had allowed them to go through the fields after harvest and gather anything left behind. If your family, friend, or coworker that you are having this discussion with says they are coming to your house if an event happens, you will need to gently but firmly shut them down. They need to know you are not prepping for them, but you and your family. That you are having this conversation with them so they can start taking measures to help themselves instead of asking for a handout. Depending on the other person, they may react negatively and become hostile or aggressive. Think about possible outcomes before you have this discussion, as you will not want to affect any close family or friend relationships. Do some research first. Are there any specific needs or restrictions this person has? If it's an income issue, you could offer to go over finances with them or quietly add a little extra to your own supplies to account for them. As I previously stated in another video, if you take on the responsibility to care for another person, they are yours to care for the duration of the event, as it could cause more problems, to only help them once, when they know you have more supplies and they are desperate. There is a lot of information on emergency supplies. It can be a bit overwhelming for some. You can always provide a list you've put together or got online of the basics they will need to begin. A simple, low-cost starter gift could be a food-grade 5-gallon bucket with the lid, $6.50. 5-pound bag of beans or rice, approximately $3. Water purification tablets, $9 for a 50 count. Stormproof matches, $3. For less than $25, this kit can be put together. Depending on your personal preferences or region, some items may be substituted. Help them realize the reason for prepping. If you get them the supplies I just listed, they may just throw it in a closet for a few years and not check on it, or rotate out some of the older items for fresh ones. If after everything they still refuse to take it seriously, then there's nothing else you can do. Protect yourself and make the call when they come begging at your door during SHTF. In conclusion, sit the people down that you want to introduce to prepping. Once you've done your research and possibly gotten them the starter bucket, and go over your talking points. If they agree and want to pursue it further, then provide them the sources for further information and education. If they have no interest, then you tried and move on. Is there an approach I didn't go over? Do you have any additional tips? Thank you for joining me on the journey to preparedness. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. Do you have something you would recommend instead? Lastly, what other topic or item would you want me to go over next? Please share below. Novice Prepper out.